Hey folks, it's Nate. Sorry for the shaky camera, but I'm recording this one on my walk at lunchtime in the woods. I think that's better than standing in my garage in front of my Jeep for this particular topic, because today I'm going to tell you guys all about why maybe you should not buy a Jeep Wrangler. All right, so anyone who's a Jeep enthusiast probably gets this question. I get it a lot when I'm out trail guiding, maybe not when I'm trail guiding, but when I'm out in mixed company, people maybe see me as a Jeep expert. Opinions could vary on whether I'm a Jeep expert or not, but they know I've been driving Jeeps forever. And they ask me, should I buy a Jeep Wrangler? And there was a time when I would answer that question with a very enthusiastic, absolutely, you should buy a Jeep Wrangler. They are awesome. They are the best vehicle ever made. They're so much more reliable, whatever. Insert reasons here that young people are so emphatic about their particular choice in vehicle. And you see it everywhere. Ford versus Chevy versus, whatever out there. Toyota versus Jeep. Everyone's got their brand and they love it for their reasons. The thing is, their reasons aren't always your reasons. And the reason I'm making this video is because I feel like the Jeep Wrangler is a very specific vehicle for a very specific person. And because of that, the Jeep Wrangler gets kind of a bad rap sometimes because the wrong people buy them. And when the wrong people buy them, they're unhappy with them. So we're going to hit up on a few points. First of all, I did want to mention that some time ago, I wrote a rebuttal article to an article I found from one of these hot topic car sites called hotcars.com. I think it was hotcars.com. This is a thing I wrote, not a thing that I recorded as a video. Basically, they had a list of all the reasons that the Jeep Wrangler is a terrible vehicle, and I rebutted a lot of them in my usual fashion, not the crazy zealot enthusiast way, but in the reasonably tempered way. And it was actually pretty successful. So you could consider this a follow-up to that, even though I did that like 3 years ago. I'll link that blog in the description if anybody's curious about it. So I got myself some notes here since I'm walking and brain only works so well. Let's see here. All right, so first of all, we're going to talk about how the Wrangler is marketed in today's automotive market, okay? Because I think that's a really big, it's important background to go into why I feel the way I do about the Wrangler. So the Wrangler is just another SUV to the average prospective buyer because that's the way it's marketed. It's marketed as a vehicle that you can take to the grocery store or you can go driving through the woods in. What is it? Go anywhere, do anything? That is to some extent true. Train. That is to some extent true, but the problem is the Jeep Wrangler makes a whole lot of concessions in order to both be built for enthusiasts, still be able to hit the trails, and be sold in today's auto market. Now, the Jeep brand has to meet similar fuel economy standards to every other brand on the market, which is why they have so many vehicles like the Jeep Renegade, the Compass, and the Liberty, or do they still make a Liberty? I don't even know. Anyway, there's a lot of government regulation surrounding automakers today. So the Wrangler, in order to be a DOT-approved vehicle that can be sold on the market, has to meet all those same safety regulations and economy regulations that every other vehicle does. That's a hard thing to do in a vehicle that has a canvas top. Literally, the whole upper half of the vehicle is made of canvas, a roll cage, a fold-down windshield, and removable doors. It's really difficult to make that thing as safe as your standard vehicle. So, because of that, and not to mention the off-road capabilities, right? Your standard SUV nowadays has independent suspension. It's built to be as lightweight as possible to meet fuel economy standards. A solid axle vehicle like the Wrangler is going to have some drawbacks when it comes to handling on the road, steering, bump steer, all these usual complaints that people have about the Wrangler How many times have you looked at the brand new Wrangler and people are complaining about death wobble? Well, you don't get that in most new vehicles because you don't have all these drawbacks of having to build the vehicle so it can still be operated off-road. So let's look for a moment at the brand new Jeep Wrangler. If you were to compare the brand new Jeep Wrangler to the rest of the SUV market right now, the Jeep Wrangler is, in my opinion, expensive. If you just look at, let's see here, so entry-level Jeep Wrangler is about $30K. That's a two-door sport, no fancy features. The top model currently on Jeep's website, which is the Rubicon 392, I didn't look at the specs on it, but I am sure it's amazing, is 75 grand. 75 grand for a Wrangler. Remember that the Wrangler was born out of a cheaply mass-produced vehicle for the war. I don't know what, by today's standards, the military Jeep was or would cost, but I guarantee it was not 75 grand or 32 grand for that matter. For comparison, the Chevy Trailblazer starts at 19 grand. The Ford EcoSport, I don't know, I've never even seen an EcoSport, but whatever, that's the lowest model they have on their website. That's considered an SUV. That starts at 20 grand. The Ford Explorer and the Chevy Blazer started around 30 to 32. Sorry, 28 for the Blazer and 32 for the Explorer. And those are probably two of the biggest names in SUVs nowadays, or at least two of the most recognizable names might be. For further comparison, the Chevy Silverado starts at 29K. Now again, two-wheel drive model, nothing fancy there. And the Cadillac Escalade starts at 76. That's 1 grand more than the Rubicon 392. Now, think about what you get in a Wrangler versus a Cadillac Escalade, even if it's the Rubicon 392. The Escalade is a very refined and creature comfort-laden vehicle. Great sound system and comfortable seats, suspension, good handling. I don't know what a new Cadillac does, but I can tell you that the 08 Escalade that we have has a heck of a lot of interesting features for a 2008 vehicle, right? Things like self-adjusting seats and all kinds of creature comforts. All-wheel drive, you know, things like that. It also has a lot of space inside. Space for people, space for legroom, it's comfortable. The Wrangler is the opposite of most of that, right? You don't get those features in a Wrangler. So when somebody is spending 75 grand on a vehicle, unless they know what they're getting into, which is part of the reason for this video, their expectations are set at the wrong place, right? If you're spending 75K for a vehicle you're going to go off-roading in, who would do that? Seriously, who are you people? Are there people out there that spend 75 grand on a vehicle and go drag it through the rocks? You're insane. Anyway, if you're buying it with the expectation that you're buying a Wrangler, then, you know, you probably won't be disappointed. It'll be a very comfortable, very well-featured Wrangler. But if you're just average Joe coming into a car lot, you think that the higher price is going to mean you get a better quality vehicle. Better quality, in most buyers' perspective, is leather seats and comfort and, you know, an awesome radio and good sound system and quiet ride and whatever. These aren't the sort of things you're going to find in most Wranglers, at least not when you compare it to a $76,000 Cadillac Escalade. Really, put that in perspective in your head. What you end up with then is buyers who purchase a Jeep Wrangler for 30 grand or 40 grand or 50 grand. They pay the money for what they think is the quote-unquote best, which would be something like a Rubicon. And what they end up with is a vehicle that doesn't get good fuel economy. It doesn't ride like you'd expect from a modern vehicle. It doesn't have the creature comforts of a vehicle today. It doesn't have the leg room. It doesn't have the cargo area that you would get out of most modern SUVs. And so what they do is they spend all that money on it, they drive it for a little while, and they trade it in. Now, for some of us, that's a good thing, because you can go look at the Jeep used market, which by the way is almost as expensive as the Jeep new market, and maybe this is why. People say it's because Jeeps hold their value so well, and that's not necessarily false, but why do they hold their value? Is it for quality, or is it just because people buy a Wrangler, don't use it for what it was made for, and then trade it in 2 years? Food for thought. Anyway, the other side of that coin is, because Jeeps are marketed as go anywhere, do anything vehicles, people buy them, beat the snot out of them off-road, and then when they're not working like they did when they rolled off the lot for their go anywhere, do anything vehicle, they trade them in and don't tell the dealership that they drug them through a pond or something. So that means that what you end up with is a used market that's full of either lightly used Wranglers, which are great, or vehicles that look indistinguishable from lightly used Wranglers to the naked eye that are beat to snot. And under the hood, you've got trouble. So all that to say, should you buy a Wrangler? I think you need to think hard about what you want to do with the vehicle. Whether you want to take it off-road, whether you want a convertible, right? A convertible SUV, whether you want it just to drive around in the snow or in bad weather or whatever, because a lot of people buy them for that because they think that, of course, the Wrangler is going to be good in snow. Realistically, my 2013, 2014, whatever, realistically, my Jeep Patriot handled better in the snow than my Wrangler does because it's built for snow driving. It's got the right all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive system. It's got the traction control. These are things my Wrangler doesn't have. That thing rode better than any Wrangler I've ever owned in the snow. Not to say my Wrangler's not a ton of fun in the snow, but it's not your average safe snow driving vehicle. Okay, so should you buy a Wrangler? Well, that's going to come down to you, what you want to do with your vehicle. Like I said, the Wrangler is a very specific vehicle built for a very specific use case. And that use case is somebody who wants a actually universal vehicle. It's not specifically good at hauling people, although it can do that. It's not specifically good at rugged tasks like, I don't know, hauling things to the work site or carrying tools around with you, right? It can do those things, but it's not what it's made for. It's not explicitly good at getting groceries from the grocery store. Again, it can do that. Our JKU is our usual daily grocery getter style vehicle. You can hold a decent amount of groceries in the back of that thing, and 2 kids, and 2 adults, right? But it does not excel at that. Our Cadillac Escalade, which by the way, I never told the channel I bought a Cadillac Escalade. Maybe that'll be in an upcoming video. Anyway, the Cadillac is great for that because that's what it's made for. It's made to be comfortable and to drive to the grocery store in. So anyway, should you buy a Wrangler? If you're like me, if you want a vehicle, maybe a second vehicle that you can take out and bounce off trees in the woods and drive over rocks and modify, then yes, you should absolutely buy a Wrangler. I wouldn't buy a brand new one for that. I would certainly buy a used one, but you got to be real careful. Maybe I'll do another video on what to look for in a used Wrangler, because there are a certain amount of things that I look for when I look for a used one, although I'm not buying Wranglers that frequently. Sorry, there's like a leaf blower going on. I'm going to turn around. So what good is a new Wrangler then? Well, a new Wrangler is good for fueling the used market, I think, and that's kind of sad because I think that today's Jeep Wrangler, in order to stay competitive in the world of fancy SUVs, has kind of lost focus on what the Wrangler is actually good for. And that is a reliable vehicle that can drive over rocks, that can drive through mud, that can ford, 30 inches of water. Cadillac Escalade can't do that. But the Jeep Wrangler cannot drive you to vacation with your 2 kids, your mother, your wife, and all your gear for the week in comfort. So, should you buy a Wrangler? Just think about why you're buying it. And if you fit those reasons, then absolutely go ahead and buy one. Personally, The Wrangler is a lifestyle choice, and if you buy it for that reason, and you're bought into that lifestyle, then you will never regret purchasing a good, solid, used Wrangler. All right, folks, I hope you've enjoyed this one. Let me know what you think. Should I do more opinion pieces like this one or not? I don't know, whatever. I've enjoyed making it. It's got quite a bit of information off my chest that I think I carry around and have to share with a lot of people. Anyway, remember, get out there and wheel. I'll see you in the next one. Everything's recording. I gotta try to walk through the woods without falling or stepping in the mud or something like that.